Central Committee. I come from Cincinnati, Ohio, Westchester, northern part of Butler County. Oh wait, northern part of Cincinnati, Butler County. Has anybody heard of my congressman? Does anybody know who my congressman is? So proud of the Speaker of the House, John Boehner. He's my congressman. So we're going to talk a lot about how the Speaker of the House is an important role and how we can change that. We're going to talk a lot about Central Committee, why it's the most important thing we can be doing to change our Ohio and our nation. So without further ado, I will turn the mic over to one of our experts on Central Committee. His name's Ted Stevenow. He is from Claremont County, and let's turn it over and welcome Ted.
I was involved with politics as a, I thought, pretty active person for most of my adult life. I know that, I can go back to 1990 and say, well, that was the time I really started taking more interest in it. And it wasn't until 2009 that I had ever heard of Central Committee. And I'll pick on the talk radio people. I had them on. I work in such a place that I can have that on in the background, and I never heard them say a word about this. And whenever I went to the local party of interest, that I was working on, I'd say, "What can I do to help?" They would hand me a telephone and a list of people to call, or they'd give me signs to put in yards, or a survey to go knocking on doors, or stand outside the election and hand things out. Nobody ever said to me when I came down and said in earnest, what can I do to help move the ball forward? Hey, I know what you can do is you could run for this position called Central Committee member. So to kind of condense the story, in 2009, obviously there's a lot of interest in the political world, arena, as you all saw. What happened in that time period, all the beginnings of many liberty groups and big rallies and marches on DC. And I started or helped start a group in my area in Claremont County, which is just east of Cincinnati, in 2009, in December of 2009. I kind of thought, well, is anybody doing this here? What are we working on? And basically just said, fine, I'll do it. And so I reached out to people that I knew. I collected emails. I said to friends, hey, email everybody you know. We did sort of a preliminary gathering of folks to come and have a meeting on this. And so our first meeting was in December of 2009. We had about 85 people come, and we were just lucky, is all I can say. One of the people living in our county was a dude who's here today, and you'll hear from him later, is Rick Haron, who was well aware of this issue of the parties and how they work and this whole Central Committee story. And he told a few of us how this worked in the very early days of the formulation of our group. Within 90 days of our first meeting, the filing deadline in Ohio to run for Central Committee was happening. So it was late February or so. And so with all the enthusiasm that was there in the beginning and not knowing anything about this, we just closed our eyes and jumped in the pool with our clothes on. It was like, we had no idea. And so he says, we'll run people for this. And the question I remember he asked us at when this all started was, how many of you are tired of going to an election and not liking the choices on the ballot? I remember that. You show of hands. Here you go. How many of you have ever had that happen? And he said, basically, what you want to be able to do is become a person who could decide who shows up on the ballot. And I thought, well, how in the world does that work? And what's involved? And so that began this process of understanding the party's influence over which candidates are ultimately the winners in various contests and how this the system unfolds. So bear with us. It takes a little while to go through it all in some detail, but I will try to formulate this. So essentially what happens is, the parties are made up of people, right? And every political party that you see is no worse, it's no better than the individual people that serve inside it, okay? In Ohio, we're what people call a Central Committee state. Some states are also called caucus states, which is a different kind of a story, but very similar. Essentially what happens is one person per precinct is elected to we live in a representative republic, right? You guys are all aware of that. Is elected to represent, every time I hear him say, to protect our democracy, I'm like, I'm sorry, what country are you talking about? We're a republic, not mob rule, okay? But in our republic, what we have is individuals would be one person from each precinct is elected in the primary to go serve as a representative to the party for the people living in that precinct or neighborhood, okay? This is true for every party. So if you're a Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter, same story. So what happens is, in my county, in Claremont County, there were at the time when we started this, 200 precincts. And I'd never heard of this again. And I started to learn more about how it worked. These individuals are essentially responsible for selecting candidates for the parties. Sometimes people call them the candidate selection committee. And one of the very unique powers that they have is the ability to vote on candidate endorsements. So if I was a candidate and you all were the Central Committee and I said I want to run for dog catcher, and there's another person here who wants to run for dog catcher, we both come up and speak and we talk to you about how we would handle the job and who we are, what we believe in, what our principles are. Then once the meeting was over, or continued to unfold, you would have a moment where you would vote for which one of us you thought was the best candidate. The prize that the candidate receives for winning the endorsement is that they have their name put on some people call it sample ballot, but legally you're not supposed to call it the voter guide. Now this is basically the card or the little leaflet of paper that's handed out before the election to people, either as they walk in the polls, they're mailed, they're put online, they're disseminated prior to the election. Okay? If a candidate's name is on that card, they have an extremely high chance of winning their election. I mean, in some cases, well over 90%, especially a down ticket candidate. Okay? So, for example, if you think about 2016, the primary election that's going to occur in 2016 is what I'll call a shiny object election. In this election, we'll have the highest turnout we get in primaries, okay? Because there's high interest in this primary. But even in a high interest primary, you're lucky to get 1 out of 4 registered voters to bother to show up at all, okay? When they show up, what are they going to be thinking about in 2016? President. That's right. They're all going to be watching Fox News and the debates and CNN and MSNBC, all that political talking head stuff on TV. They're going to be looking at who's parting his or her hair which way, who's got their laundry wear. I mean, all the nonsense that we go through, who's walking their dog. You guys have seen all this political theater about the president, okay, or who's going to be president. They will not be thinking about who the title, who's the clerk of court, who's the title clerk, who's the county auditor, who's the prosecutor, who's a county commissioner, frankly, who their state rep is, you see all those other races. So what happens is people will come to that election who really, some of them, for better or worse, this is a reality we live in. If you said, I'd give you $500 if you could even name your state rep, most of them would go, I'm out of luck. I can't name who my state rep is, okay? They will use that voter guide to then tell them and guide them, or sample ballot, or whatever political correct term. I break up, screwing it up. It's sample ballot is what you don't want to call it. You want to call it voter guide. But they will use that guide to then direct their vote. So where are we? That political community and Central Committee is immensely powerful because it will basically determine what those primary voters are going to do the day of the election. So let's look at this chart just for a second because I want to show you a little bit some more of the dynamic as we go through this. Now, this is a chart about my county, which is Claremont County in Cincinnati, Ohio. The county I live in is a Republican county, meaning there hasn't been a Democrat win a partisan race in my county for over 20 years. So partisan race means there's an R or a D by the candidate's name on the ballot, okay? Now, some of you may live in Democrat counties, or it switches back and forth. But the key statistic for everybody is 80% or so, or more, of congressional districts are gerrymandered. How many familiar with the term gerrymander? You know what that means? Okay. Are drawn to be controlled by one or the other major party. So this system applies in every one of those districts, okay? Because what that means is, when it's drawn that way, it favors that one party. And so, general election day, Mickey Mouse would win if he was on the ballot as long as he has the correct R or D by his name. There's a story of Jesse Jackson Jr. in Chicago. Had a lot of trouble with his, what was going on in his life and the way he was doing his work. And basically he had won the primary and was kind of a non-candidate after that. He didn't even, I believe, show up in public. He was not campaigning, didn't really seem to want the job, but his name was still in process. Well, he won with over 60% of the vote as a total non-candidate because his district was totally weighted toward his party side. So this is true in many other instances. And so what you have here is this dynamic where the real decision is made in the primary. So people use that expression, and I hammer this expression all the time. Remember in November? Oh, that's the siren song for incumbent and establishment politicians to have you not pay attention to the primary and just come and vote in November when the decision's already been made. Okay, Congress last year had an approval rating of about 13 or 14%, yet over 96% of them were reelected. How in the world does that happen? Well, this is how that happens. Okay, so we'll go through this chart here, and we'll see how this plays out, and we'll build all the pieces today as we go. What you see on the far right, that 132,966 in the primary of last year was the total number of registered voters in our county. Okay? 200 precincts when we first got involved with this. There's 166 precincts now. They changed it over time when they redistricted. But they're 132,966. The next number that you see, 17,245, that's the number of people that actually showed up to vote in the primary last year. Now, as I say, this is a Republican county. About 3,000-ish of those people are Democrats that showed up to vote for Democrat issues. And there's actually a very important race that they vote on during the primary that we'll talk about later, that they actually did make an impact that was important for their party that day, even though there's such a small number of them, and they don't affect many other races. But the rest of the people who showed up that day were essentially Republicans. Now, there were Green Party and a few other small libertarians, some groups that are there too. The next number that you see, well, even before we look at the next number, think of it this way. If the decisions made in the primary, okay, basically what you just see here is that 17,000 people are making the decision for 132,000. When these people show up on general election day in November, they're rubber stamping the decision that was made by these people in the primary earlier on, okay? That's not 1 in 5. What's that number? Somebody do the math on that one. It's 1 out of 7 registered voters? Look at that, okay? That is a phenomenal problem right there. We need, as liberty-loving people and people who are interested in having our country be in a better direction, we need to change this paradigm so that we get more of these people in the big column coming to the primary. So that's one story. So let's look at the numbers a little more. The 6,421 number, okay, what that number represents is, that's the number needed to provide the majority for the controlling party in this case, which is the Republicans. So what does that mean? 6,421 people were all that were needed for a Republican candidate to win his or her primary in the primary election. Then when they won that, they're locked to win in the general. Okay, so now, we thought it was sort of lopsided before that 17,000 people made the decision for 133,000, but the real story, as we continue to unravel it, is that it's about 6,500 people that are making the decision for 133,000. You guys see how that works? So it's just that majority, and that slate card, the ability to influence that majority of people in the one-party control, that's the magic. I could coin a phrase. He who controls the primary controls the general. Okay? So now let's unwind it even more. Somebody do the math on that. What's the 132,000 divided by 6,421? What is that? 1 in 20? Okay. The last number is 100. Currently in Claremont County, there are 166 Central Committee seats. The bylaws of the Republican Party says for a candidate to get an endorsement, they need to get a vote of 60% of the members of the County Central Committee. So if you guys were that group, and I come to you before you to say, I want you to endorse me for dog catcher, 60% of you have to go, Ted's the guy. Okay? If I get that endorsement, then my name appears on the voter guide. We got a picture of a voter guide we can show you. There's one there from our county. That's a legit, real voter guide. If my name's on this guide that gets passed out before the primary, that gets put online before the primary, that gets mailed to people, that's handed to them as they walk in the door, you guys are all seeing it, that's just distributed everywhere. My name's on that guide. Because you endorse me, I have like upper 90% chance of winning. Very rarely does someone lose an election, and that when they're getting this endorsement, especially for these lower ticket races. All right, so we'll go back. So now, 60% of 166 member Central Committee is 100. But the reality is, you have an endorsement meeting, okay? It's just like this. You got 166 members, maybe 130 show up, okay? So the number actually comes down. Usually it's about 70 to 80 votes, somewhere in that range, are all that are needed to decide who's going to win the endorsement, then get their name on the card, then influence the majority of the primary voters, then win the primary, then be locked to win in the general. So check it out. You got 100 people telling 132,000 people, 133,000 people, essentially, what the outcome of the election is going to be. This happens at a meeting that the press hardly knows about or attends. It just happens one night at a local Holiday Inn. I've been there to several of these meetings that folks just get together. I mean, it is absolutely remarkable. And this meeting, like in Claremont, this time, is going to happen in November of 2015. So when everybody's going to be focusing on November 2016, remember in November, almost a year in advance, the Central Committee is going to meet. The candidates are going to come up and say their piece. The vote's going to happen. The voter guide's going to be, the sample ballot's going to be, voter guide. I shock me every time I say sample ballot. The voter guide's going to be determined, and folks, that's the end of the story. And especially this time, because everyone's going to be thinking in March, when the primary comes, president, president, president. If you're an establishment local politician and you're into like keeping your pension going and your control and all your crony relationships, and I mean you're all about that, you love the circus that's going on for president. You love the political theater of the debate. You love that people just going, hanging on every word of every one of those people that are on that stage. Because they're putting all their time and energy into focusing on that. You love to see them listen to talk radio and complain. You love to see them, writing a letter to their congressman and writing letters to the news. Focus on all this other stuff. But don't put your eyes here. Don't learn about Central Committee. As long as you don't pay attention to that part of the story, everything's wonderful. So you'll see when you read my messages, I am hammering on the traditional things people do that they think is political. The traditional things people do that they think makes a difference. Oh, I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to really rip them in half. Really? You're going to write a letter to the editor. You're going to what? You're going to go to a rally. You're going to wave a flag. You're going to put a bumper sticker on your car. That meeting is where it happens. Okay? You guys with me on that? So now let's deconstruct a little bit more of it. Now there's a picture of a Central Committee meeting. In Ohio, there are 9,160 precincts. Okay? So that means majority is just a little less than 5,000 people, right? 9,200, so you get 4,200, 4,100, right? That would be all you need. The reality is, about a third of those precincts, nobody even bothers to file for, okay? So that means they're just blank and wide open. Now, I'll prove this point by going back to the very original story. In 2009, when we first did this, it was like Rick said, well, why don't you guys engage on this and see if you can make a difference. I looked at my township, okay, in the county. Of the 200 precincts that were there, my township had 42 precincts in it. When I looked at the Board of Elections records, which shows which candidates ran before and how this worked, only 13 people were running in those 42 precincts. So all the other precincts were open. And so that means a lot. That means if 13 people run, 13 people are elected, you need to scrape together a majority of 7 people, elect a chairperson who can then appoint to all those empty seats. So what happened was, in my case, the person who was the chairman of the township party, he was an employee of the clerk of courts. And they would appoint people who were going to be lining up with the endorsements that worked for them. I mean, there were appointing, there was a guy I knew who was there, who was the public defender. He wasn't a public defender. He was the guy he's the attorney you get when you can't afford one. He was like a contractor, but working inside the system. You with me? In one of the townships in our county, there was the congressperson. There were at least 3 people with the last name Hoffman. Okay, and that was the maiden name of the congressperson. You see relatives and family and folks that are, whether you might be a contractor to do something for the county, or you might be an elected official, or you might be interested. These are all inside people that have something to do with government. And what I let kind of the common denominator underneath them is there's a lot of conflict of interest. These weren't people like you who are here trying to say, wait a second, we got to preserve liberty in our nation for our kids and our grandchildren, and we don't want to see this wonderful, beautiful thing of our country just disappear because what happened to it. They were folks that were somehow wrapped around the axle of the system. So, in this 42 precinct instance, 13 had run before. I helped recruit 26 people who were folks just like you. We ran 26 people in that election. We won 23 of the seats. Okay? We had something called a reorganization meeting, which is what you'll learn about, after the election was over. And the old guys were there, the old guard were there, and I remember they were very unhappy. You can't come in here and just do this, who do you people think you are? And we were like, well, pass out the ballots. They passed the ballots out, and 15 minutes later, they were gone. Okay? The citizens then took back the party. Okay? And so, a lot of moving parts and a lot of dynamics here, but if citizens select the candidates, If citizens are the ones who vote for these endorsements, that you'll have a greater likelihood that you'll have better quality people that show up on the general election ballot. It's a lot of details, but Rick was right all along. If we want to see better quality candidates on the ballot, then this is the place to get involved. I could go to DC and wave my "Don't Tread on Me" flag till I get tennis elbow. It does nothing. Nothing. Okay, I'm tired of wasting my time. I'm tired of spinning my wheels. I'm tired, frankly, of begging. Right? If it's somebody else's guy that's the representative, we say people are policy. If you want better policy, you need to be able to change the people in charge. If it's somebody else's guy who's there for somebody else's reason, who's got some sort of who was put on the platform by crony, conflict of interest people who don't have the liberty of the nation at heart, you with me? You know, garbage in, garbage out. You get there. These people are a product of an environment that the citizens have either never knew about or have abandoned. Okay, and so what I'm suggesting is, if the citizens take back, and I don't care what party you're in, okay, this is true on both sides, that one of the biggest problems our country faces is what I call cronyism, because I can't think of a better term for it. It's another way of saying conflict of interest. If you had regular citizens who said, look, we're here because we're about our principles. That's what we care about. I mean, you're not here to keep your grandfather or your Uncle Bob in his cushy job with the government so he keeps his pension going, okay? You're here because you care about the future of the country. This change on both sides of the party would help move our system into a better direction, I would submit to you. So all the moving parts come together. People are policy. If you want to have better policy, you have to change the people in charge. Now, getting involved with this has just warped my perspective on everything from a certain standpoint. I watch stuff now. Rick has a good analogy. It's like watching dominoes fall. What they talk about on the radio and what's on the news and these internet stories, that's the last domino falling over. The dominoes started long ago. When we talk about, the other day I sent a message out about watching the debate, who's going to be on the stage. If you look at all the people except for Carson and Trump, because those guys are kind of walk-on candidates. But the rest of those folks that were in the second debate, and many of them in the first, except for Carly Fiorina would be the other one who would be a walk-on. I kind of messed up the message. I just picked out Trump, but really there's three. All of those other folks came to the fore through years of engagement in the party system that then sent them forward. What you're seeing is a culmination of years of individual people in those parties making advancing those people to where you now see them on that stage. The good news and the bad news. The good news is you can change the system, you can have a huge impact, you can make a giant difference. The bad news is it takes a while, okay? I mean, John Kasich, as an example, is who he is today in Ohio because of the Central Committee in 2008. 2008, they elected State Central Committee. That State Central Committee endorsed in the governor's race in 2009. They were the ones that when all the rallies started and all the stuff and everybody got involved in 2010, their candidates were already there. By the time people got off their couches, they were engaging with a party system that had already put candidates on the floor. And so they went and elected. I remember hearing people say, oh, because everybody's using the Tea Party moniker. I remember they called the 2010 Congress the Tea Party Congress. I remember at the time thinking, this isn't a Tea Party Congress. These are all just old cards shuffled from the Republican deck. These are the same people you've been seeing. It's going to take a while and again, I don't mean to focus just on that. It's use whatever term you like. Regular citizen-based, liberty-based coalitions were not in place to be able to put candidates in the system to be able to be ready at that time. So, again, good news and bad news. Good news is we can make a huge difference and change the direction of our country. The bad news is it takes discipline and time, okay? Because it's going to be a while before we're able to move this forward. So, all this together we'll go through today. We'll talk about how to run as an individual. We'll talk about how to organize in your community, okay? Meaning how to recruit other people. We have two sort of levels that you look at. It's possible to engage on like a township basis or a city basis effectively, even if you can't get your big county together. But it's also possible if you live in a county that's got a manageable number of precincts that you can make it happen. There are literally in this room 3 people that for most of their efforts we were able to in Claremont County have the floor of the Central Committee and the Republican Party basically taken back by the citizens. So a lot I can say. I could do hours and hours just to kind of telling the old story. This is not a theory. This is not unproven, okay? We in Claremont County were in 2012, after we had about in the 200 precincts, we ran successfully about 4 dozen people. So we took about 25% of the Central Committee and had regular people get involved. What happened is there were other people that were already on Central Committee who were like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. This is the best thing that ever happened. Well, we hooked up with them. We created a coalition in Central Committee in our area. It was substantial. And what happened was we were able to control that 60% endorsement process. Now, we couldn't will forward an endorsement itself, but we could stop any endorsement we wanted to. You know, if you were opposed by the people, you didn't have a chance. So my last story that I'll tell on this, in 2012, our part of the state was one of 3 places in the country where an incumbent Republican member of Congress lost to a primary challenger. Okay? The person who ran against Gene Schmidt, his name was Brad Wenstrup. Brad had never held paid political office before in his life. People talk about, oh, you can't run for Congress, that's a big league. You got to do all this stuff, you got to have all this background and all this years of experience and be wound around the system. It's like, nope. This is a guy, you know, who had good accolades, right? He's a former military guy, he's a physician, he's got all these things. I mean, he's a good-looking candidate. But he engaged the system for the first time in this arena, and we were able to have it so that he won. Behind the scenes in that story was that our citizen coalition withheld the endorsement from the former congressman, okay, congresswoman in this case. We were able to have her name did not appear on the sample ballot that year. She lost in the end by 9 points in her own home county. And I mean, she was in DC when this happened. It was a surprise to everybody. How could it possibly be? At the time, it wasn't a big news story. I mean, people in Ohio saw it, but if you think about all the energy that's happened since 2010, only one place in Ohio has replaced their congressperson. Think of the approval rates you're aware of. Wow, that's a lot of flag waving. Sometimes I do meetings like this and I go, how many of you have been able to, effectually replace a county level employee? I get no hands that come up. How many of you have done, we go through them all. County level, we say school board, trustees, local stuff. People are like, oh, you start some hands there. If the citizens don't gain greater ability to impact elections, why would they listen to you? Right? Special interests get what they want because they have money and they can influence elections with their money. The citizens right now, for all that's gone on, have not changed the paradigm. You're still just, if they let their voicemail get full, they've handled you. You're not really, citizens have willfully given up, essentially, their ability to elect and unelect people. And I would submit to you that if we could regain that ability, okay, we don't even need to win them all. It's not like you need to throw them out. You just need to throw enough of them out to go, these people will actually replace you if you don't listen to what they say. If you don't at least consider their input and try to modify what you're doing. Without that influence, we're just gongs in the wind, okay? We could just keep getting policy jammed down our throat and things won't change. The citizens have to take this back. We have 11.5 million people living in Ohio. To take back, essentially, maybe I need a better way of terming that, but to re-engage and revitalize and make fresh air come into a political party in our state. It only takes 5,000 people to do that for a major political party. We are the most important swing state in the galaxy, right? I mean, in the battle between Republicans and Democrats, no Republicans ever won the White House without winning Ohio. This is the moment, and you'll hear today, we talk about this. This isn't just about this issue of endorsing candidates. It's also a function of how healthy the party system is. It's about people believing in the party. It's just, instead of saying, my party that I used to support has gone amok and they don't have principles anymore and they don't stand. The reason we have so many more independents is because they've lost faith in the parties. Well, this is a way to restore the integrity of parties on both sides. Okay, this is a way to engage people more effectively in the precincts. Actually have a healthy system where you're the precinct representative and you actually talk to the people in your precinct. You actually tell them when early voting starts. You actually give them information on how to register to vote. You actually provide them with information before the election that's helpful so they can become informed. You actually tell them that there's an election day today. And you can improve the turnout, you can change the paradigm, you can do all these things that everybody wants. And my last statement, and I'll turn it over to the next person, is this. And I steal some of Rick Haron and I. We get together. We're like a slogan fest, the two of us. But Rick said one day when we were talking, he said, "Look, people talk about the system being corrupt, and I get this. I get these emails and messages from people like, oh, it's rigged, and they got control, and there's nothing you can do, and you can't fight City Hall." Baloney. Okay, baloney. when 1 in 5 are showing up for the primary, ladies and gentlemen, is there somebody standing on your porch saying, hey, you're not voting today? No. People are of their own free will deciding not to voluntarily not to participate in the deciding contest. Right there. 1 in 7 in my county. I don't hear any conspiracy theories. Okay? I just don't want to hear them. When 1/3 of the Central Committee seats, nobody bothers to file, folks, that's not a conspiracy. That's not rigged against us. That is the citizens giving up their power willfully. Because nobody's participating when it counts. We're digging in the wrong place. Oh, I'm listening to talk radio. Frankly, I'm watching the debate. Ooh, wow, yeah, this is great. That's the first time I've turned off the radio. I deleted a bunch of the news. I don't watch this garbage anymore. Because my brain's only got so much time for this, it's going here. Okay? I sat and watched that debate. And for the first time in a long time, reconnected with the political theater that everybody's normally doing. And I'm just going, this accomplishes nothing. Okay? Especially if we don't cover the space. Look, cover the space, enjoy watching the debate. Okay? But don't forget to cover this base. And so I'm suggesting that it's right for the taking, and this is the operative phrase. The system isn't broken, it's neglected. It's neglected, clearly. I mean, I would love to have a debate and have somebody come and try to tell me it's not neglected. It's neglected, okay? People aren't showing up when it matters. And so today we're hopefully going to give you guys a good window on what that means and take home and say, look, I can do this. And I will add one little extra piece too. It's about you running, okay? But it's also about connecting with other people, right? It's not that hard to find other people who agree, who could get involved and work together with one another to be able to make this happen. You know, I've seen all kinds of people over the years doing this. I mean, one guy, he can hardly walk. And people talk about going door to door. Well, this guy, he doesn't go door to door. He makes phone calls, okay? Everybody's got some way they can contribute to meeting other people. Look, if you thought I can't run, I don't know anybody, get a walking list, as you'll hear about that later today. Get a cup of coffee and a highlighter, and just go through and just invite 5 people over to the house for the afternoon. And say, hey, let me tell you this story. Is there a possible way we could work together on this? You will find people in your area. We just need to reach out and do this. This is something that is well within our reach, and it is more impactful than anything I've ever done in the Liberty Movement. I mean, there's nothing even close per time spent. Nothing comes close to this. So, a lot to say. I'll wrap up my part there. And thank you again for coming, and hopefully by the end of the day you guys will go, oh yeah, we got this nailed, and we have something very tangible we can do to change the direction of our country. So thank you.
Central Committee, big takeaway, it is the most important thing you can be doing on your time. Business people always talk about return on investment. It only takes, I literally have totaled it up, it takes about 48 hours a year to be run for and be on your Central Committee. Do you have 2 days a year to save your country? It's not too much work, really isn't. The next speaker today is Rick Haron. Rick Haron taught a lot of us about Central Committee and the importance. He's been doing this for a long time. The wisdom he can give you is frightening at times. Yeah, good. Let me introduce you guys. This is Rick Haron from Claremont County.
Howdy, folks. I hope I won't be too frightening.
Don't scare us.
I hope that's frightening. Aren't they adorable? Such a cute couple. Well, the reason I have those guys up there, the co-speakers of the House, I don't know if you noticed that last election for Speaker, Nancy Pelosi sent 20 of her Democrats to a funeral in New York so that they wouldn't be there when the Speaker was elected, which reduced the threshold because there was a challenge against Boehner, but because she sent those people out of the room, Boehner's threshold was lower and he was able to get back in. So the only reason he's the Speaker of the House is because Pelosi helped him get there. Now, you can make up your own mind why or what kind of backroom deals were made. And this here is what the prize is. This is the prize, the gavel. The gavel decides everything. Whoever is wielding the gavel, they run the meeting. And in a legislature, the Speaker of the House decides if and when a bill will come up for a vote. If they don't want a bill to come up for a vote, they just throw it on a table. That's what they call it, tabling a bill. Harry Reid, who's the majority leader in the Senate, who was anyway, he was real famous for tabling bills. I mean, he had something like 180 bills sitting on a table that he wouldn't bring up for a vote. Okay, let's go to our next. Oh, before we do that, let me tell you why I'm in this. I believe in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, where it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator. Certain inalienable rights among these are life, liberty, and property, pursuit of happiness." And that's why I'm in this, is to preserve our liberty. And if we don't take control of the candidate selection process, we're going to continue to have nothing but people who don't care about those things. If all we did was send people to the Ohio House, the Ohio Senate, the U.S. House, and U.S. Senate who cared about preserving life, liberty, and property, we'd be in good shape. If we just send people who will do the right thing, that's all we're asking for, just people who are going there for the right reasons. And as long as we're not sending the right people, we're going to continue getting what we're getting. And another thing about this, everybody in politics today understands how this system works. These people right here understand how Central Committee works. That's why they're there. The only people, we are the last ones to figure this out. So it isn't like this is something new. This has been around from the beginning. Abraham Lincoln wrote about this system. Many presidents started out as Central Committee members. Harry Truman, while he was president, came back to his district one time, and the press corps followed him. He was president, so the whole press corps followed him. They had their Central Committee meeting. He came back for a Central Committee meeting. And when he came out of that church basement, the press corps all going, what are you doing in there? What was that all about? He said, "Oh, that was my Central Committee meeting. I'm still a member." And he said, "Why do you care about being a precinct executive?" And he said, "Well, precinct executive is the highest office in the land, because they decide who everybody else is going to be." Okay, this is basically our current situation. At the very top, we have a lame speaker, right? How did he get to be speaker? Well, he was elected by feeble congressmen. How did those feeble congressmen get to be congressmen? Well, they were elected by a weak Central Committee. But what's going on at the bottom? The voters in the precincts, all the registered voters. I'm a Republican, so I'll refer to the Republican Party. But this works in both parties. Same thing. If you walk your precinct, you will find that the vast majority of the other in my case, Republicans, they're all very conservative. They're as conservative as I am, except for the ones that belong to like government unions, stuff like that. They have government jobs. Some of them are not. But the vast majority are very conservative. So how is it that the vast majority of the voters end up with a weak congressman and a lame speaker? How does that happen? Well, there's a break right here at this level, the Central Committee. That's where the break is. These people don't have a choice. They've not been given a choice of a conservative congressman or a conservative senator, because their Central Committee selected some crony, some relative, some buddy, some friend. So all we have to do to fix the situation is put good, strong, liberty-loving folks here in Central Committee, and then these people will get the candidate that they want to vote for. And this brings up another dynamic. A lot of liberty-loving folks are fed up with the system the way it is now. And they just have decided, I'm not going to vote, and they stay home. And so those districts, those red districts turn purple, and then they turn blue. And it's for a simple reason. Our people will stay home if they're not given a good choice. So even if you live in a blue district or a purple district, if we get in Central Committee and put up decent liberty-loving candidates, more of our folks will turn out. We could turn a blue district purple and a purple district red. Okay, what's the next one? All right, this is the future. This is what can be. This one hasn't changed a bit, same exact wording, same voters in the precinct. Just hoping for, you know, somehow they don't know how, but somehow they're hoping a decent, liberty-loving guy will get on a ballot. What changes? Well, we in this room, we decide to get on that candidate selection committee, the Central Committee, and we pick strong, liberty-loving people to run for Congress, state rep, state senate, and all the rest, school boards, everything. They, in turn, send these people to the legislature, who in turn elect a good Speaker of the House, who will then defend and, you know, the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay, what's the next one? This is basically the same thing, only on the Senate side. What's different here is the state Central Committee. The county Central Committee, in essence, not directly but indirectly, decides who the state Central Committee is going to be, because there's a committee at the state level as well, who endorse all your state level candidates, like senators, governors, auditors, who will then in turn elect, those senators will then in turn elect the majority leader in the Senate. You know, Mitch McConnell, who it is now, Harry Reid, who it was before. And if we don't change the state Central Committee, we're going to continue electing the same people for Senate, who are going to continue electing the same kind of people for majority leader in the Senate. It's just that simple. If we don't change this level right here, these guys will never get the candidates they want. It's just that simple. We can wish it was some other way. Yes, sir.
Isn't this a great reason why we need not to have ever a new constitutional meeting?
You mean what everybody, a lot of people wanting to have that Article 5 convention? Yeah. Well, the thing about that is, let's say we had no, just a mind or whatever you want to call it, a thought experiment. Let's say there was no constitution whatsoever. If we sent a majority of people to Congress and Senate who believed like us, that we believe that people have rights, and and we have an obligation to respect their life, their liberty, and their property, and that the government also has the obligation to respect their life, their liberty, and their property. Our life, liberty, and property would be safe. So just send decent people. It's people that are policy. Look at the Constitution we have now. Our Constitution's not broken. They're ignoring it. So the Constitution is a wonderful thing. The Declaration is a wonderful thing. But what we need is people who up there who believe in it, who will then defend it. And right now we don't have that. So yeah, you're right. I don't think we need a new Constitution. We need to defend the one we got now. Yes, sir.
Real quick question. If, for instance, the state Central Committee endorses, say, John Kasich for the presidential position, are the local county Central Committees obligated to follow that?
Yeah, the question is, are the local Central Committees obligated to follow along with the state Central Committee when the state Central Committee endorses Kasich for president or governor? No, they're not. In fact, our county was one of, what, 2 or 3 counties? I can't remember. Us and Warren. We were the only ones. When Kasich was running for governor last time, we were the only county who did not endorse him. Now the state, of course, state Central Committee did, because we don't have a majority on state Central Committee yet. We're getting closer. But no, you don't. Yes.
Is Mark Meadows going to be effective in getting Boehner out, do you think, or not really?
Probably not. He doesn't have the majority. You got to have a majority. And I mean, he can try, and it draws attention to the fact that, we have a problem. But until people understand that everything is working except this layer right here. It's the Central Committee layer that's missing. These people down here, they want a liberty-loving Speaker of the House. But they don't know. You know, talk radio never talks about it. Ted mentioned that. One way to think about talk radio is there's two kinds of talk radio shows out there. Like you can think of the big three. I listen to them myself. I'm sorry to say. Ted's been trying to talk me out of it, but I'm addicted. But it is depressing because every day I keep hoping and praying they're going to mention Central Committee, and they never do. And I write to, I don't know how many tens of thousands of emails, short and long, sweet and sour, that I've written to these guys. So I don't know if they read them. I don't know. But they either don't get it, or they don't care, or it doesn't fit their business model. Let me finish this and then. But the big three, Rush, Hannity, Levin, any of the others, mainly all they talk about, they're like cataloging the decline of America. That's all they talk about is the latest disaster, the latest crisis, the latest kick in the gut, the latest, everything is just one slam after another. Everything the bad guys are doing. There's nothing about what the good guys are doing. Us guys in this room. You'll never hear about it. It doesn't sell LifeLock. It doesn't sell blinds. Blinds.com, It just doesn't fit the business model. Then the other kind of talk show is like Dave Ramsey, right? Dave Ramsey gets on the air and says, okay, you people out there, you run up your credit cards, you got student loans, let me show you how to turn that thing around. And he teaches them all the little baby steps, and people call in, okay, I'm on baby step number 5, and after a while, people calling in, hey, the debt-free screen, yay! And that's what we are. That's what the Ohio Precinct Project is. We're not here to catalog America's decline. We're here to show you how to turn this thing around. The baby steps, and then how to climb out of it. That guy was, let me take that question first, yes sir.
No, I just wanted to add in that on KRC in Cincinnati, Brian Thomas show in the morning, that's how I first found out about Central Committee. So they're maybe only on a local level, but it gets talked about frequently.
Yeah, in fact, it was, well, you know the story, that we live in that area, and I think it was you, right, Ann? You're the one who got Brian to have us on the first time?
Me?
I think so. Well, I used to write Brian Thomas all the time, and I was so, back in those days, I was so annoying, they actually put a block on my email. I didn't know it, so I'm writing all these letters, and they're just going right in the bit bucket, And then Ann got us on, and we got to talk, and we all became friends after that. And I was talking to Joe, and I said, hey Joe, every time I send you an email, I don't get, he goes, wow. I said, am I blocked or something? He said, no, I've only blocked 3 guys the whole time I've been doing this, and they were all, blankety blanks. Well, he checked, and sure enough, I was one of them. So he unblocked me, so I can get through now. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that last election, we added 9 conservative people to the Central Committee, the State Central Committee.
To State Central Committee?
Yes, that's what I've been told. I am running this time for State Central Committee.
Oh, that's awesome.
My name is Joanne Wiblin. I'm in Senate District 31, that's Licking, Coshocton, Fairfield, Perry, and Hocking.
So you're
Yeah,
going to go
the
against
state
Judy
central-
Zell?
Pardon me?
You're
Hi.
going against Judy Zell?
No, I'm going against Betty Montgomery.
Okay, Judy Zell, I was going to run.
What?
Yeah.
I need your help.
Here, I got a few things I want to show you.
I'm thinking about running too.
Do,
Yes,
do.
I don't think we have a map, do we? State Senate District map? Well, you can download these. You can get these maps off the Secretary of State's website. But a state Senate district, here's the Ohio Senate districts. The Ohio Senate districts is how the State Central Committee is divided. So there's 2 members on the State Central Committee for every state Senate district. And you can look at this stuff later if you like. But the one thing I wanted to show you was these letters. I got tons of these at home. These are letters sent to me by candidates, people who want to be prosecutors, judges, congressmen, I don't know, senator, it doesn't matter what it is, dog catcher. And in here, on really nice paper, are cover letters and resumes. Just like you would get if you were the boss and you were getting ready to hire somebody. Now, how many people get cover letters and resumes from candidates in here?
As a central committee person.
You're on Central Committee, that's right. See, everybody understands how this works except us. We're the last ones to figure out how this works. Now, the nice thing is, we outnumber them 100 to 1. So once we get involved, we're going to take our country back. Another way to think about precincts is like a foxhole. You know, every soldier, if every soldier just stays in their foxhole and defends their foxhole, then we can win the war. It isn't the generals back in, you know, wherever that win the war. It's the guys on the line in those foxholes. And you think of your precinct as your position. This is where you fight from. Yes, sir.
What if you're in a county where the executive committee has the power, not the central committee?
The executive committee is elected by the central committee. So,
I'll tell that story.
okay, but that's essentially how that works. So yeah, it's either directly or indirectly. So, yes, sir.
Is there any size limit to the central committee in terms of people, head count?
By state law, a precinct is going to be anywhere between 400 to 1,400 registered voters. And there's usually, but it's the bylaws of the local county. The local county can say, well, that's a very large, you know, area. We want to have 2 members per precinct. Or one will say, well, we only want 1 member per township. So it all depends on the local bylaws. But this is all in the Ohio Revised Code. You can Google search it, read the Ohio Revised Code all about Central Committee and how the county Central Committees are set up. There's certain minimums, but within it, it's up to the individual county Central Committees. They can make up any rules they want. Is that it?
I had one comment.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. I remember when Paul Harvey tried to give out positive news all the time. And he found out people don't want to hear positive news, they want to hear negative news.
Yeah, we are addicted to bad news, you're right. And it's a bad habit. Now it's okay to listen to it, but don't let it affect you and don't let it stop you. One way to look at it is the game that you invented with the little cards. Just think of it this way, for every 10 hours you listen to talk radio, you lost 1 seat on Central Committee. You could have, in that 10 hours, you could have got 1 guy elected to Central Committee. So just think about that. Every 2 weeks you're listening to, you know, all 3 of them all day long. That amount of time, if you invested it in this, we could have our country back. You know, in fact, most people only listen, let's say you only listen to 1 talk show, 3 hours a day, which is 15 hours. Just take 1 of those hours. Just spend 1 hour a week on this, we could have our country back in 2 years. Because this doesn't take a lot of time. This is the greatest return on investment politically you can ever invest in. It's simple, it's easy, it's fun. I mean, when you go to these central committees, sometimes they are a lot of fun. You can't buy that kind of entertainment. And just remember, you don't have to argue with anybody either. When you go in there, you don't have to argue back and forth because it's not an argument, it's arithmetic. If there's more of you, you win. If there's more of them, they win. It's just that simple. You never have to argue. You never have to even talk to anybody. It's just, the only thing that matters is when it comes time to endorse, you vote for the Liberty guy, they vote for the crony guy. Whoever's got the most votes wins, period. One more question, yes?
Okay, I'm from Greene County, okay, and we basically got our committee, okay. Then at the last couple of meetings, we were able to do two things which were fantastic, because they would never visit issues.
Oh,
okay?
why don't you come on up here and say the mic? Yeah, well, we're always wanting to hear good news.
Okay, I'm from Greene County, and they would never visit issues, okay. And so, at the last couple of meetings, we were able to pass a resolution against Common Core, because our national Republican Party is against Common Core. And actually, I've got the 2012 Republican Party platform nationally back on the table if you want to have a chance to have a copy. And at our last meeting, we were able to pass a resolution that we were encouraging our General Assembly to pass the heartbeat bill. And what was the fun part was all three of our General Assembly people were there and had to watch us do this. Okay, and they all say they're pro-life, but they won't get stuff out of committee, so they vote on it. So I actually asked Senator Widener if they came out of committee, would he vote for the heartbeat bill? Well, of course, he said he would. Okay.
The thing there is, now that they have a majority on the Senate committee, all their congressmen and senators, state reps and state senators, they are now worried about those people. That Central Committee is now in a position to replace them. So you are either in a position to beg them to do the right thing, or you're in a position to replace them with someone who will do the right thing. That's just the way it works. Take your pick. Okay. Who's next?
I tripped. See that? You didn't see it.
Give it up for the godfather of Century Minute.
Yes, please, give Rick Haron all the hugs and love you can. It takes a couple diligent people to get it done. So, well, to Marlene's point about influence of your party, if you're a libertarian, if you're a Democrat, if you're a socialist party, every political party has a central committee. You have a Green Party central committee in your county. You have a Democrat central committee in your county. So it's any political party you're looking for. So.